Hey there, wild things! Howler the Wolf here for another episode of Ask Howler the Wolf. Well, it's July, and we here at Impact Earth celebrate it by going as plastic-free as possible. How do you do that? Well, there's a whole lot of different ways you could at least limit your usage of single-use plastics. Here are a few examples. First, you could use a reusable straw as opposed to a single-use plastic straw. They're made out of a lot of different materials, including steel, silicone, bamboo, and other types of wood. If you're going to reuse them, they're pretty easy to clean. Sometimes all you need is a thin brush to get down inside that straw to polish it out. And for wooden straws or bamboo straws, when they outlive their usefulness, at least they can be composted. Plastic straws are actually a huge problem for the environment. If they end up as litter, they may wind up in sources of water like streams, rivers, or even the ocean. They'll still wreak havoc on your local environment even if they don't end up in water. Wildlife can accidentally eat them or get injured by them, and when the straw starts to break down, it doesn't really go away. The plastic material actually will remain in the environment for up to 1,000 years. That's a long time. You could also reduce your usage of plastic packaging. Maybe instead of using those plastic produce bags at the grocery store, you could use a canvas bag or some other type of cloth bag. I mean, at least those are reusable. Believe it or not, plastic bottles are also a huge problem. They don't always end up in the recycling bin, and sometimes even if they do, they may not get recycled at all. In some places across the US, only about 9% of any material in a recycling bin actually gets recycled. Yikes! An alternative to plastic bottles would be a reusable bottle. This can come in handy when you're running, hiking, or just out playing sports. Another solution to the plastic bottle problem is to just not use plastic at all. Buying from retailers who offer glass bottled products is another great way to just avoid plastics in general. So you might also be wondering, why exactly is plastic so bad? What is it made from that makes it such a problem? Now, I'll try to break it down as simply as I can. Plastics are actually made from oil and natural gas. Through a lot of complicated processes of mixing it with different chemicals and different temperatures, you eventually end up with a product called nurdles. Nurdles are basically little pellets of unrefined plastic. These usually get sent to different factories where they're then converted into the plastics we know, like water bottles or car parts, PVC piping, things like that. What makes plastic such a big deal is the fact that it just doesn't decompose like normal natural products tend to do. Plastic instead just falls apart and turns into smaller pieces, and these pieces wreak havoc on the environment. It can make wildlife very sick, and it can make you sick even. And when I say it breaks down, these pieces get really small.
You can still see things that are usually 1 millimeter in size. Microplastics are actually smaller than that. Some of these are about the size of a grain of sand or smaller. That means it's easy for these to get into food that wildlife eat. Nanoplastics are much smaller than microplastics. In fact, they're so small that human cells are actually bigger than they are, and that means sometimes they absorb them.
The health risks to humans from plastic is still being researched, and there isn't a whole lot of data out there yet. What we have found so far suggests that plastic can mess around with your hormones, which can affect things like growth. So if you can imagine that happening to you, think about what it could be doing to wildlife and nature in general. It's not a pretty picture. So that's why we think Plastic-Free July is such a big deal. Getting rid of plastics could really help the entire planet, not to mention your own backyard. To give you a little more information about plastic litter, let's go back in time a little bit. My friend Sylvan the raccoon took part in some litter cleanups last spring. You wouldn't believe some of the stuff that he found. Hey wild things, Sylvan the Raccoon here. I'm on the hunt for litter. So now I'm down here in Palmyra, scurrying through the neighborhoods, and this time I remembered my work gloves. I am not getting my paws dirty today. Come on wild things, let's go! I am all done with this part of Palmyra. I scurried all around the neighborhoods and I'm going to show you a few examples of what I got. So in this paw, you've got the can of tuna. Yes, and that's made out of aluminum. Well, mostly aluminum. There's some other metals in there too, but that can be recycled. Just remember, you got to rinse it out. No food particles. Let's see, we also got a bottle of dish soap. Yeah, believe it or not, that's also recyclable. So that can go right in the bin. What else do I got here? A clamshell. These things usually house yummy treats like muffins or cookies or even bagels or salads, and believe it or not, as far as I've learned, not recyclable. So you gotta make sure that this gets properly put in the trash can. All right, a package of butter. Some of these paper packages come laminated in plastic. So unfortunately, that means that this piece of paper cannot be recycled. It's got to go in the landfill bin. And lastly, a carton of milk. Now there's a couple of different kinds of cartons out there, but this one is made out of plastic. And as far as I can tell, some are recyclable and some are not. That little code on the back, the 3 arrows with a number in it, I have learned that that does not always mean that the item is recyclable. Wow, I think that's the first time we've ever done a flashback on Ask Howler Wolf. Maybe I should do a few more of those, that might be fun. Well, thanks for watching, and until next time, stay wild and stay curious.